but now we're going to speed things up. This is where we start going really fast. So we're going to jump into lightning talks. So with that, we're bringing folks up on stage, and I'd like to first hand it over to Josie Gonsalves of Public Square. Josie, welcome, Josie. 5 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thanks, Stephanie. And by the way, I'm going to be really fast. Thank you, guys. Thank you, CCM team, for this amazing summit. I'm glad I got to catch the last part of it. And thanks for inviting Public Square to participate in this, our first lightning round. Very psyched. Good day, everyone. It's an honor to address you and share some insight on the philosophical framework of Public Square, a very new and volunteer-driven, and I mean volunteer-driven, local nonprofit news organization, employing journalism as a tool of civics and civic engagement. Founded by a team of Black women with a commitment to establishing a newsroom model that challenges everyone to create bigger platforms for diverse community members to construct and share their own stories through a multimedia and solutions-driven approach. And so many of the conversations that I got to see earlier sort of references that and sort of highlights that. For us in particular, it's to amplify the views and experiences of the local African diaspora, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latino, Indigenous, and immigrant voices in global spaces. So for us, what is this connection, local news and public engagement? So the workings of a democracy demand an informed and engaged citizenry, a citizenry where each member has full citizenship. In a racialized democracy, it is about the stories we tell each other, the stories we create about ourselves, and the stories of the othering of others. The counterbalance requires marginalized and disenfranchised voices to own the apparatus of the storytelling and the shaping of their narratives if this democracy is to work for all of us, all of which takes capital out of reach of said organizations. And what we want to create is one that rests in the reality of who we are and not the perception constructed. And that's really key in a democracy, right? We want to rest it in reality and not in perception. For non-white designated community voices, and I speak of such in a narrow binary construct of a society undergirded by whiteness as power at the condemnation of Blackness. The democratic, diverse, inclusive, equitable, and equal spaces have always been racialized. In so doing, this structure has served to create and perpetuate narratives and mythologies that deny the humanity of such communities. Case in point, Public Square has been covering the story on the Rodwell Spivey brothers for several months. The case of these brothers is started in early June this past summer, where 4 brothers were accosted by undercover, unannounced police officers in front of their family home in the Newark South Ward on a summer afternoon. Brothers are Black, police officers are white. Media outlets covered the initial altercation in the fashion that reinforced the stereotypes we associate with young Black men and their lives. Words like mob and violence were descriptives, assumptions of their backgrounds, and so much more. We chose to engage with the family, neighbors, and attorneys and give voice to the mom of 4 boys who herself has faced and continue to face intimidation and harassment. Our mission at Public Square, to deconstruct the different components and tell the story from the perspective of the community. For example, I spent this morning in the courthouse to cover more of the ongoing case and amplify a story that has gone silent by most media outlets. At the hearing, where the 4 brothers stood before the judge with their individual attorneys, their brother Justin walked into the courtroom, and I think he was so reinvigorated and just lifted by a courtroom lined with supporters for these 4 brothers. At the end of the hearing, when everyone had left the courtroom, I asked mom for her response to a proposed motion to release their son that is still being detained prior to any pretrial hearings. And she said, "I miss my son. I invite you to visit our website to read part 1 of this family saga. Thank you.
That was fast, Josie. Right. And also I should mention that Cassandra on our staff was also helped with founding Public Square and is managing editor, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Full transparency.
Yes, full transparency and full disclosure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josie. So next up, we're going to hear from Simon Galperin. Simon, come up on the stage of the Community Information Cooperative. And you have 5 minutes, and you know that Joe will whip you off the stage if you go over. So the floor is yours.
Happily, he'll do it happily. Hi, everyone. My name is Simon Galperin. I'm the founding director of the Community Information Cooperative. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to the democratization of journalism, media, and technology. You might have heard about us from our work on info districts, a vision for a nationwide network of special taxing districts to fund local news and information at the hyper-local level. You might be familiar with it, with the way we fund other public services like libraries, sanitation, water, waste management, business improvement districts are common. And we envision that as a way to fund hyperlocal news and information to restore news deserts that are growing across the United States. We launched the project in 2016, started the nonprofit Community Info Coop in 2018, and have successfully documented and seeded info districts as a solution to the local news crisis across the country. And in 2020, we turned our focus to more practical applications of what we'd learned, thinking through what a new generation of public media might look like. And we did that by launching the Bloomfield Information Project. In response to the pandemic and also to our evolving work, the Bloomfield Information Project emerged as a lab serving Greater Bloomfield and Essex County in New Jersey, and exploring how we can build new services, new community-sustained services for local news and information. The approach we're taking is news ecosystem restoration. Restoration ecology is an actual field that I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in, but there are some basic elements, frameworks that we follow that are helping us get Bloomfield from news desert to self-sustaining news oasis. The basic steps are: you stop erosion, you stop the degradation of the news ecosystem, you begin restoring nutrients, and then you replant. You create the infrastructure that ecosystem needs to grow. Like all good ecosystem repair, ours started with listening through surveys, interviews, community meetings, social media monitoring, ecosystem mapping. We identified news and accountability gaps that we began to address for the purpose of creating a self-sustaining news ecosystem here in Bloomfield. The way we're addressing the erosion of access to news and information in our community is through a daily curation service we're calling a news harvest. We basically keep an eye on over 150 sources of information in our community and bring news on government, business, schools, social services, and community events to hundreds of community members, each of them a bulwark against the erosion of civic news and information and engagement in our communities and in their communities as well. This minimally viable news service has allowed us to build a movement for news and accountability in this community. And the next step in our restoration is to begin providing some of the nutrients the ecosystem needs to run on its own. To that end, we've been piloting training programs to give community members the tools and skills they need to meet their own info needs. And thanks to the New Jersey Civic Information Consortium, we're launching our first community reporter corps, our trainings to help people learn those news and information skills and begin addressing their own neighbors' news and information needs. Finally, the infrastructure we're seeding isn't a traditional journalism model. Instead, it will be more resilient because it will rely on community production, community governance, and hopefully one day in the future, community funding, so that no matter what happens to journalism as an industry or journalists as professionals, our community can continue to meet its own news and information needs. And of course, like any ecosystem repair, it needs to be maintained. So we are partnering with organizations like Stories of AC, the Trenton Journal, and the New York Story Collaborative to imagine a statewide collaboration supporting news organizations like ours, depending on depending on community production and serving the news and information needs of traditionally underserved communities in New Jersey. The name of that collaborative is the New Jersey Community Media Collective, supported by Free Press and the local news lab at the local news fund at the Dodge Foundation. So really excited about the opportunity to see this small networked model for local news and information at a local level maximize its impact and efficacy as we explore statewide collaboration to meet the news and information needs of traditionally underserved communities and provide new inputs to the professional journalism class in our state so they can help serve these communities better too. Thank you.
Ooh, nice. Just under the wire, Simon. Thank you so much.
Mike Shapiro, come on down.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, I'm here.
Mike, you're up next.
How are you?
All right, good. Floor is yours, sir.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm a little behind because I was expecting her to go before me, but let me see what I can do here. So just bear with me.
We appreciate you jumping in. We'll give him a few extra seconds. All right.
Best I can do is 8 seconds.
Yeah, I'll present this. So, hi everyone, I'm Mike Shapiro from TAPinto, and thanks so much for having me here today. And what I was going to be speaking about today is about a DIY user-generated submission process for press releases and other kinds of non-news content that we developed at TAPinto a few years ago, and how that revenue has grown over time. Basically, for those of you who don't know, user-submitted content, also known as user-created content or user-generated content, is content created and submitted by an end user. At TAPinto, this is not news. This is press releases, event listings for the calendar, classified ads, real estate listings, and it's clearly marked as such when it's published on TAPinto. The benefits of user-submitted content is you're providing your readers, in addition to original local news content, which all of our TAPinto sites provide every day, you provide readers with additional information. You also are able to generate additional sales leads, and it creates new revenue streams, both in terms of sponsored content as well as paid content opportunities through our DIY system. So in a fee-based submission model, users are paying for their content to be published, and it's labeled as sponsored content. In a true sponsored content model, we're partnering with a business or an organization to publish their content and selling sponsorship rights to that content, which again is labeled as sponsored content. And one of the reasons we developed this was we were getting, like probably many of you, we were getting inundated with press releases and event listings and all this kind of stuff that were being emailed to all of our franchisees. And this was taking up an incredible amount of time and effort to post these kinds of things. And so we developed this DIY platform where users can do this directly through the site itself. They can choose the TAPinto locations they want it published by. They pay per site, and those payments split out to the franchisees of those towns. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the success of the system so far. So we built the system in 2019. In 2020, we started to really encourage the franchisees to emphasize submission of this content rather than through email, through the DIY content platform. And in 2020, the system brought in, across our franchise sites in New Jersey, brought in almost $40,000 in revenue. In 2021, we met with the franchisees and we said, emphasize more about the submission of the content through the DIY system. And when I submitted this proposal just a couple of weeks ago, the number was at $80,000 in revenue this year. However, we're now on track to well more than break $100,000 in revenue to our franchisees in New Jersey from this content, this DIY content platform. And in 2022, we're moving to a new system, which is being redesigned and redeveloped. It'll launch January 1st. But there, except for nonprofits that get an exemption, when you submit your content through the DIY system, you will have to pay to submit content, whether it's press releases, events for the calendar, et cetera, though we're empowering our franchisees to grant exemptions to nonprofits in their communities so that they will be able to submit content for free. we expect the revenue to at least double again, so that by the end of 2022, it should be bringing in over $200,000 in revenue for our franchisees in New Jersey. And so we're pretty excited about it. And we think this is an interesting way to handle the deluge of submissions that everybody's been getting, and to deliver, to put value on the content on these press releases, event listings, et cetera, that our sites are publishing, because we're providing a significant audience for all of these different businesses, et cetera, to have their content published. So by providing value for that content and establishing value for that content, we're also deriving revenue for the franchisees who are owning and operating these local news sites in now 83 sites in New Jersey, covering 125 municipalities. Probably have a second or two left. So I just wanted to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, I have 1 minute. So
you have about a minute.
Yeah, so in terms of what companies are paying for this, basically, businesses are the primary focus of it. And then in terms of nonprofits, it really depends. The nonprofit can apply for an exemption. So for example, there are nonprofits that have significant marketing budgets. There are others like Rotary Club that have no marketing budget. So those obviously are granted exemptions, whereas the ones that have marketing budgets need to pay to reach our audience. Our model is 100% advertising based. We have no paywall. We're not a nonprofit. And thankfully, we've been able to be profitable now 4 straight years, and our TAPinto sites, our franchisees are profitable as well. News is never something that anybody pays for. That's something that is covered, and that's our bread and butter of what we do. But if people want to reach our audience, then we put a price on that. In our view, sites that are not nonprofit, that's what sites should be doing. Rather than establishing a paywall and walling off people from getting the content for free, we believe everybody has the right to original local news content for their towns, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And so that's how we've been operating TAPinto. And I'm proud to say we have successful TAPinto sites everywhere from the most Tony suburb to some of the most distressed areas of New Jersey.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being a good sport and jumping in there too.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So now we'd like to welcome Sharene Azimi from the Institute for Nonprofit News to the stage, who, although she works for INN, she is based here.
Yay.
She's down the road.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think we had like a momentary power glitch here in Bernardsville. So let me just share a screen quick. I'm on my laptop screen because I don't know what happened. Okay, I'm going to share quick. Okay. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the nonprofit news world and just bear with me. I'm on a tiny, tiny screen. Okay, here we go. So nonprofit news difference. So let me just give you a sense of our network at a glance. For those of you who don't know, INN is a national network. We now have about 350 members across the country. There's the map. Somehow over the last 2 years during the pandemic, we've actually grown rapidly, 25% year over year, probably the largest growth period in our 12-year history. We now have about 2,500 journalists working throughout the network, but the scope of the work is actually much larger because those 350 members distribute through 3,800 other media outlets, which means that every day, probably tens of millions of news consumers are reading our content, probably without even knowing that it originated in a nonprofit newsroom. A few trends I want to share with you. A shift in composition. When INN got started about 12 years ago, it was mostly national investigative newsrooms. We've seen an amazing growth in local and regional. So if you look at this little chart, you add up local, state, and regional, it's about 70% of the membership. And we have 7 members here in New Jersey. Also a shift in funding. It started out mostly national foundations. Now we're seeing more regional and local foundations get into the game. more individual donors, not just sort of at the subscriber level, a couple $100 a year to get your newspaper, but significant major donations, $5,000, $10,000 and more business income. So this map, little chart shows local newsroom revenue mix. You'll see edging up toward 0.25% of these newsrooms revenue is coming from earned income, meaning what you think of as advertising, business sponsorship, sponsored content, and so forth, and events. So it's really becoming a very sustainable mix, especially at the local level. And another shift we're seeing is in diversity, equity, and inclusion, which we just started tracking. But right now, more than a third of the members have staffs that actually reflect the U.S. population, meaning, over 35 toward 40% people of color. About 1 in 3 have a person of color in one of their top 3 leadership positions. Again, it could get better. It will get better, but, we're sort of heading in the right direction. And 1 out of 5 actually prioritize coverage of communities of color. So it's not just something that they happen to do. It's actually something that they emphasize doing. All right, what makes nonprofit news different? It's arguable. I'm going to present you with 4 ideas today. 4 key qualities. All right, so it's in depth. If you're looking for the sports scores or, recipes, our members may not be your best bet. They really focus on hard news. They tend to have sustained coverage of issues. They do investigations, sometimes over the course of a year or 2. They follow stories, they go deep, they build expertise, and they really present hard news. A second key quality is that it's accessible. There is almost never a paywall on our members' websites, their newsletters. The idea is that if you can pay, and we want you to pay, then great. If you can't, you still have a right to read this news. And they also share with each other. It's a very collaborative model. So the content and the resources kind of get spread across the network. Third quality is that it's inclusive. And by that, I mean not only what I mentioned earlier about who's doing the reporting and who's leading the newsrooms, but who they're talking to. We're seeing an increasing diversity in sources, which means an increasing diversity of stories. We like to say that our members tell stories that would otherwise go untold. I really think it's true. It's communities that have traditionally not had a megaphone, and it's going in and talking to those people and telling their stories and making sure that they have a platform. And the fourth key quality, I think, is innovation. Honestly, the members don't have a ton of money, so they kind of have to do a lot with what they have. And that means often going to where people are and meeting them where they are. So during the pandemic, some of the audiences, maybe they didn't have great internet connections at home. Maybe they didn't even have computers, but they needed to know where to get food, where to get testing, what was going on with COVID. And so we saw more and more of our members doing text messaging. We saw them also hosting Zoom events. And most recently, we've seen them pioneering WhatsApp as a news distribution tool, because as you probably know, a lot of Spanish speaking immigrant communities are relying on WhatsApp to communicate. So a lot of innovation. And I'm going quickly, so I'll just leave you with this last slide, and I'll take questions if I have time. I sort of think of the middle here, right? If we want news to be a public good, then it has to sort of have these 3 essential qualities, right? So it has to be credible and be seen as a trustworthy source for fact-based reporting. And when you have outlets that are focusing on opinions, people just aren't trusting them anymore. Oh, I've been bumped.
Perfect ending, though.
That's it.
That was awesome. Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So now I'm so honored next to welcome our colleague, Ambreen Ali from the Center for Cooperative Media to the stage, and she's going to talk about the Diverse Source Database. So Ambreen.
Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to share about the database with you guys today. If you haven't heard from me in the last few months, I've been talking about this nonstop, but the New Jersey Diverse Sources Database is a collaborative that we launched a few months ago. It was born out of conversations that we had about how reporters and newsrooms can do a better job of sourcing from a more diverse pool of experts. We all know that newsrooms are busy places, that editors and reporters don't have a lot of time, that often they're working on deadline. And so, when it comes to picking up the phone and talking to somebody, you're going to go back to your same old sources. And what we wanted to do was think of some ways that we could create tools that would make it a little bit easier for reporters to, one, source build when they have some downtime, kind of find people on their beat that they haven't necessarily talked to, and get to know them. And then two, also just like quickly find somebody when they are on deadline that is relevant to the topics that they're covering without necessarily reaching for, whoever is in their immediate circle. So the New Jersey Diverse Sources Database is a website that is publicly available. I'm going to share my screen now so that I can show this to you. So it's at diversesourcesnj.com, and it's basically, I should probably just pull it up to show you. So here it is. It's basically a collection of profiles of experts on a variety of topics all over the state. It covers a lot of different types of beats, from, professors at universities on health and policy, and to activists, to entertainers. And we're hoping to continue growing it. And you can search through this website by location. So maybe you cover a specific part of the state, and so you want to look for experts there, or a specific topic area. And you can go click through, learn more about the individual, and have contact information for reaching them. The sources themselves are managing their profiles, and we're working with them to kind of build a community around this project as well. So providing them resources on how to reach out to the media, what to expect when a journalist calls you, how to kind of navigate that situation. And they range from people who are, professionals, have been doing this their whole lives and are very well media trained, to people who are maybe members of communities that have not been traditionally called upon by reporters to be interviewed. And for reporters, we're trying to be useful beyond the database by holding events that showcase some of the experts on this website, and give an opportunity for people to connect. So we've launched an event series called the SOS Same Old Sources event series. And we held an event last week that was on COVID and worker rights issues. So we had 3 panelists speak who talked about their expertise, and then took questions from reporters. And we're hoping to continue that series moving forward as a way to share just opportunities for reporters and sources to connect. This is a collaborative, so we welcome media organizations to partner with us on this. If you do decide to partner with us, then the only ask is really to promote it within your newsroom, encourage your reporters to use it, and to help us nominate folks. So at the bottom of the website at diversesourcesnj.com, you can click on Nominate a Source, and there's a very simple form for doing that. And anybody can do it. We've been passing it along to community organizations and universities, but we ask that anybody who has experts in mind that would be good for the database, consider adding them. And all that does is invite them to fill out a source profile. It's an opt-in thing, so they decide whether they want to be part of it. But in general, we found that this is one way that maybe we can move the needle a little bit on getting our newsrooms to do a better job of covering the diversity of this state, which is truly incredible. We have so many communities represented in New Jersey, and we want to do a better job of telling those stories. So diversesourcesnj.com. Thank you.
And under 5 minutes. Awesome. Thank you, Ambreen. Thank you for all the work that you've done on the database. And Ambreen is going to be leaving us at the end of this month, and we're going to be looking for someone else to take over this work. So if you just heard about the database and you're like, that's amazing, I love that, get in touch. Cassandra's going to be hiring someone to take over this really important project soon. So next up is Tehsuan Glover from the Newark Times. So Tehsuan.
Thank you very, very much, Stephanie, Cassandra, and everybody else on the team, Joe. Want to talk about how to become a better local media partner. And I want to start off with the understanding of what our position is as local media. As local media, we're uniquely positioned as a platform for the common interests and sometimes the uncommon interests in the local community. So what does that mean? Well, for one, it means that there are, depending on the town, the locale that you're in, there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are interested in what your platform has to share and say, simply because of the proximity, simply because it's either home, or it's where they work, or it's where they play, where they, entertain themselves. But there are people who are willing to give us their attention. What that also means, and more importantly, is that we have to listen. As local media platforms, we have to listen. There's an adage that, we are born with 2 ears and 1 mouth and use them in proportion. As local media, we should follow that. There's far more listening for us to do, far more listening that we can do and should do than there is in speaking or writing or spreading a narrative. And sometimes the listening is not going to come in comfort. Sometimes it's not going to come to us easily. Sometimes we have to mine for the data, mine for what's on people's minds, mine for what they want to share. But in this day and age, fortunately, mining is not necessarily a heavy lift. It has to be consistent, but it doesn't have to be a heavy lift. Mining could mean, sharing polls on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all allow for polls. We could utilize that feature to find out what's the pulse, what's on our audience's mind, what's on our local community's minds. It also means that we could do on-the-street interviews. You can get an awful lot of context, awful lot of content and context, just by spending a couple of hours on the main street in your town, finding out what's the pulse of the town. As a resident of X town, what's on your mind, and allowing people to just speak for a couple of minutes on what their priorities are, whether it's in politics in a local municipality, whether it's in arts and culture, whether it's in business, whether it's the pandemic, whatever it might be. And so that also takes us to knowing, who is our client or customer, and then who is our
Eso también nos lleva a entender quién es nuestro
profit media platform. And, we offer advertising as a service or a product of the platform. We might have certain clients and customers, but they may not be our end user. Our end user may be someone who just takes in the content and shares it with, other people in their networks. But we have to know who's who, so that we can know, who we're serving, if we're serving them, and if so, how we're serving them, and how well are we serving them? How well are we being a partner to them? We also want to know who are our partners and comrades. And, the best example for me most recently has been the Center for Cooperative Media, because I was not aware of the Center for Cooperative Media for up until a couple of years ago. And these are resources, they're partnerships, there's a network there that I was not aware of. And, look at me now, so to speak. We're on, this call and, this event because I was made aware of it, and understanding that there is more and more resources that are available. Another question to ask ourselves is, what makes us uniquely unique? So being local media in and of itself makes us unique. But what makes us unique within the network of local media? In a city like Newark, there are multiple local media platforms. So what is it that the New York Times specifically can offer? Or what is it that we have as a skill or a resource or an expertise that would make us specifically unique in that context? And so having these types of questions in mind really just keeps us in the spirit of, what is it that we have to offer of value to the people that we're serving? How can we be a partner that's valuable to others consistently? Thank you very much.
Awesome, Tehsuan. Thank you so much. Thank you for being such a great partner to us too. At the center, we've really enjoyed working with and supporting you. So next up, we've got a duo. We have Cloud Hughes from Front Runner, New Jersey, and Kenny Miles from the Trenton Journal. They're going to talk about the fact that they are two of a very small group of people working as part of Facebook's new newsletter platform. So Kenny, Clyde, floor is yours.
Well, I guess I'll start off. I want to thank everyone for inviting us to participate. Working with Facebook has been a wonderful opportunity for me. They've been very supportive. I have a strategic partner, manager who helps me to see things on a different way. So, I can't view things when I'm creating content solely as a journalist, but also I know I need to think about creating content as a content creator. So Facebook has been wonderful in helping me with that in that regard. So I know we only have 5 minutes. So Clyde, I don't know what's going on with your audio, but the deal that we have with Facebook for me is for 2 years, and the whole purpose of the deal is to make sure that the newsletter that I created in Trenton, the Trenton Journal, is able to live on without Facebook. So they're helping us with artwork. They're helping us with attorneys. They help us with social media engagement. That was really important. I know, Clyde, looks like you want to say something. I don't know what's going on.
Am I on now?
Yeah, there we go. We got you.
All right.
All right. Hallelujah. What I was going to say before, one of the things that Facebook Bulletin has really helped me on is connecting with people. Right now, on Facebook Bulletin, I have about 1,000 followers, and that continues to grow. And I've been constantly getting contacts, which is something that has been, I won't say difficult on my full-time Frontrunner New Jersey website, but the people on Facebook are really active. They're asking questions, they're probing, and it's really helped me kind of tailor what kind of news they're looking for and what I can offer. So that has been a benefit. And also, it has helped me grow my regular website on frontrunnerNewJersey.com, because you want to make sure you're growing both. So we got about 2 minutes here.
So Clyde, can I think you and I we spoke yesterday. So you and I, yes, we have something in common. We both had platforms before we started our Facebook project. So yes. Can you speak on to why you decided how do you decide what content goes on to your Frontrunner news site and what goes on to your Facebook site?
Yeah, right now it's kind of mobile. I try to focus for my Facebook site. I try to focus on stories that have a wider appeal. All of my hyper-local news goes straight to frontrunnerNewJersey.com. If it has a wider appeal, matter of fact, I'm working on a piece on the governor's race. That's going to be on my Facebook site. There is a piece that I did. It started off as a local piece, but I branched it off about Black farmers. I turned that into a Facebook piece, and that got a lot of publicity. So that's kind of how I'm tailoring my stories, from what goes on Facebook directly to what goes to frontrunnerNewJersey.com. And that may morph as time goes along, but that's how I'm looking at it.
Can I add that for me, it's important for me not to just rely solely on Facebook as well.
Yes.
I look at them as like a wizard, right? They're able to do certain things and you can grow your following, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, in terms of going out and meeting people, because you can get a whole bunch of followers. That's not necessarily important to me, but it's building community where people trust you. They trust you as a news source. I find that more important to me than anything else, but they've been wonderful to work with. I have no complaints, and I'm not even sure if we call them Facebook or Metaverse. But they've been very.
I guess we are in the Metaverse, but I have no complaints either.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thanks, Clyde. Thanks, Kenny. Sorry about those audio issues, Clyde. So we have another Kenny up next, Kenny Katzgraf from Broad Street. So Kenny is going to join us today to talk about the Ad Lab, which is an initiative that the Center for Cooperative Media has helped support with funding from the local news lab. So Kenny, floor is yours.
All right. So Kenny, while we wait for Kenny, we can go on to Tom. Are you ready, Tom Bergeron? All right, Tom's ready. Sorry to jump that time. Go for it.
No, it's okay. I just had to figure out the buttons as we always do. Listen, I appreciate you guys having me on today. I'll introduce myself. I'm Tom Bergeron. I'm the editor and co-owner of ROI NJ. I'm not I'm often known as the host of Dancing with the Stars, which I am not. And I'm also known as the guy who was, insert the word, smart enough or dumb enough to try to start his own media publication in 2017. And people often ask, why did you do it? How did you do it? What are the tips for starting a media organization in this day and age of, in theory, at a time when media is contracting? So I came up with a 5-step do's and don'ts and rules for starting your own. That we are a for-profit publication. And here's my 5 steps for doing so. 1, under the idea that people are consuming content more than they ever have before. So there is a need for media. There is a want for media, and you can, in theory, make money at it if you do it right. So here we go. Step 1, define your coverage area. It can be big, it can be small. It just needs to be focused. And what I mean by big or small, but focused, consider, let's say you wanted to cover education. Are you going to do one school? Are you going to do one school district? Are you going to do one subject? Are you just going to cover STEM? And then if you're just going to cover STEM or history or entrepreneurship, are you going to do that within a school district, in a town, or statewide? However it is, you have to define what you cover and who you cover and stick to it. When you stray from that, as people tend to do, they want to cover everything. That's when you become too saturated. Step number 2. Figure out if anyone else is covering what you want to cover. This is very key, obviously. What is your competition, or are you filling a much needed void? The second answer is always better if you're filling a void. I give the example this way. Let's say you wanted to start an organization about covering state politics in New Jersey. Good luck. Lots of competition, lots of mainstream media, lots of online media, all kinds of people are covering politics in the state of New Jersey. If you want to jump in, boy, that's a crowded market, but go for it. Let's say you wanted to cover politics just in Morris Plains, New Jersey, my hometown. Good for you. I can tell you, there is no one covering the political scene in Morris Plains, New Jersey. You found yourself a narrow niche. That's all great, but there's one key. Step number 3, find out who your potential sponsors / advertisers would be. If you want to make money, you're going to need advertising. You're not going to make it on clicks. You're not going to make it on, other ad streams. You're going to need basic sponsors and advertisers. You have to figure out who your audience is, and again, how saturated the market it is. Let's say you want to do a blog on youth lacrosse, and whether you've decided you're going to do boys or girls, town-wide, county-wide, statewide, you figured out your niche, you're going to do boys lacrosse. Great. There are tons of companies that would love to reach people who are interested in youth lacrosse. Now, you have to figure out how you compete for their dollars. In this particular space, there's going to be a lot of people covering it. So very key to figure out ahead of time, do you have people that are going to support your endeavor? If you don't, all you're going to do is have a blog that you're doing from your bedroom. Step number 4, figure out who your business partner will be. This is very key. If you're doing content, you can't do the business side. Period. End of story. No debate. You just can't do it. There's the ethical part of it. What's going to happen the minute you're talking to somebody and they're asking about advertising? But really, there's a time element. Both sides of the business are incredibly time consuming to do well, and both of them can jump at a moment's notice. You can't dictate when the news is going to happen. You can't dictate when a potential advertiser is going to call you back. You need to have one person for each. So if you're a one-man band, one person trying to do, God bless, I just think that's very difficult. You want to get in a situation where you have a clear division of responsibilities, one doing content, one doing business, and try to grow those respective staffs. That's what we have here at ROI. Number 5, step 5, I'm going to sound like the grumpy old man yelling at the clouds here, but it comes from experience. So many people who get into media say, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it all on video. That's what people want. Everybody wants to look at video on their phone. Everybody wants to do it. I'm here to tell you that is incredibly challenging and very difficult to make money. I can tell you from experience in a previous life, I worked at Yahoo, probably the biggest video media outlet on the globe. And I saw how many video projects at Yahoo alone died. And you've seen it with so many startup news organizations that are going to be all video based And it's just really hard to get people to watch videos, far harder than you think. It's really hard to get people to pay to put an ad on a video. And then it's really, really hard to get them to do that twice after they see the numbers on the first one. We had a joke at Yahoo, the video that you're looking for is the water skiing squirrel. That's what people want. They don't want to see an interview with the president, let alone the town council person. So I'll leave you with this. Here's the definition of a viral video at Yahoo. Unless you're going to have this type of thing on your site, it's not going to work. A viral video are videos that you will watch twice and then send to a friend. So think about your viewing habits. You have to watch it twice because it's so cool, and then you have to send it to a third person. Unless your site has tons of those videos, don't go with video. It's a tough thing. That's it. 5 minutes. That's my advice.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And congrats on growing ROI&J into the juggernaut that you have just over the last few years. So now we have Kenny. He's with us, right? Kenny, you're there? You're there. Yay.
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, all right. Floor is yours.
All right. Thank you guys. And thank you for putting this on. All right, cool. So I'm Kenny. I'm the founder of Broad Street. Broad Street is a company that does ad management. And we serve about 400 publishers, a lot of them in New Jersey. And we embarked on a project with the Center for Cooperative Media called Ad Lab. And it was an effort to bring group ad sales to some publishers in New Jersey and also some sales training along the way. So, a little bit about, that Tom just spoke. My background was also at Yahoo. So prior to Broad Street, I was very involved in ad networks. I had a really good sense of how they worked. And when I started the company Broad Street, we were originally going to launch a digital ad sales network. And we made an attempt at doing that, but we learned a lot of things along the way. And this is kind of the second iteration of that. And I think some things went very smoothly, which I'll talk about today. But quick overview, concept, high-level idea. The training that was involved, I'll review that, and I have some of the resources if anybody would like to see that. And then I'll talk about the sales network, since that was there was a really big focus and a lot of effort went into that. Known obstacles with doing something like that, preempting those obstacles, the model, the setup, and the successes. So there were two components, as I mentioned. One was sales training for all publishers involved. Part of it was that, we can do group sales, or part of the thinking was that we can do group sales, but it would also be great if we could give everyone a really nice primer on what's really working for publishers in terms of sales. So the general process that you go through. But then for the group sales component, this idea you've probably heard before, one central sales rep who does ad sales on behalf of many publishers. And we had some ideas of why part of that could work, why some of it was a little harder than previously thought. But it's all about getting a bunch of small publications together and selling to advertisers who probably wouldn't work with them individually because it's a lot of overhead. So on the training piece, we did an 8-part series. So it was over the course of 8 weeks. And we went over pretty much all the key components of ad sales: pricing and packaging, your digital ad inventory, building your lists, organizing those lists in CRMs, doing outreach. So, what are the things that we typically say on an outreach email or phone call, running successful meetings, putting together a proposal, closing and renewals. And of course, we had Annette Batson, who's the ad sales director of BaristaNet, very involved in Broad Street, New Jersey Media, and the Center for Cooperative Media project. But we, with Annette's expertise, we also built some resources like a media kit template, proposal template, advertiser case studies, things that our publishers could use to just hit the ground running, because we're all about actionable advice. We got an email about halfway through. Someone said, "Hi, Kenny, in advance of our class, I'm hoping you can offer some advice on something." They said, "I've been following the Ad Lab method and I'm in the process of closing 2 new advertisers." So it was awesome that that training led to somebody being able to sell ads on their own as well. So quick view of the resources we had: the media kit template. Each one's about somewhere between 8 and 10 pages. But you can cut and paste what you don't like. They were in Google Doc form, so it was really easy to make a copy and edit. And I'll have this link at the end, but if you do want those resources and the recordings, it's all in one big Google Doc, Ad Lab Training, or broadsheetads.com/adlabtraining. So on that group sales piece, There were some known obstacles from when we had tried to do this before at Broad Street, probably around 2013, 2014. Small publishers like Herding Cats, very busy business owners trying to get everybody, either on a call or on a single email thread or responding to that. That is tough sometimes. Also, some things vary widely among publishers: ad inventory, traffic preferences, relationships with existing advertisers. We don't want to sell an ad to, somebody that a publisher has been working with, which we ended up doing this time, but ended up working around it a little bit. There's also some issues in technical ability. Hey, we need these ad tags on your site so we can run these ads from these advertisers. Usually people need some help in getting that set up. Also need a good sales rep with regional connections, and that was awesome for that. And then at sufficient size of sales, if you're dealing with a big enough advertiser, you're kind of competing with ad exchanges. So we wanted to stay with more regional advertisers. And you don't always have good traffic in certain key geographic areas. So we were missing Hudson County, I think, initially. But we tried to solve all of these. So get everyone on a group email thread. Our team set up all the publishers, preset the inventory, like, hey, we're going to have a big leaderboard and top sidebar. This is what's required. We need it to be standardized. Sell on a CPM basis, just so we could, sorry, my screen switched. Sell on a CPM basis so that we could, in fairness, deliver the revenue from the sales to publishers based on the proportion of traffic that they served. And we kind of had to say, if we sell it, we're going to say very family friendly and very, brand conscious. But if we sell it, we need you to run it. And then again, trying to navigate those sensitive advertiser relationships. Like I said, and that took part in that. We stuck to regional sales, and we did recruit a couple of publishers who were in some of those areas that helped enable some of those sales. So because Broad Street had built up the relationships, we had a lot of contacts, and we can get a couple of publishers where we needed them. The model and the plan was set up publishers with ad tags in optimal positions, create a one-pager and sales sheet, approach those regional advertisers and offer them basically a minimum of...
You got your own timer.
I did. Am I already through?
Yeah. You're through. That's okay. It's since we're supporting this project, I was like, I'm not going to stop him. Exactly.
Okay. All right. I'll rip through the slides. I'll give me 30 seconds. All campaigns were run.
Can you have 30 seconds?
He's got it. Yeah, I'll allow it.
That's okay.
Okay. And we did this for about 90 days. Here's the sell sheet. And then I'll just skip to the successes. We did have some great successes with Hoboken Arts and Music Festival, Mayo Performing Arts Center, Montclair Film Festival, Magic Family Getaways, and more to come. We're only 45 days in. We got 45 to go, and it's been working pretty well. So thank you, everyone.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I know we were rushing you off stage just about 5 minutes, but we will be sharing all of this publicly. We'll be writing about this, and we'll hear from Kenny and Annette again soon, probably after the new year. And if you get Cassandra's newsletter, which hopefully you do, and if you don't, we're happy to sign you up. We will share everything we find in that newsletter.
That'll be in there as well. Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. So this is the last lightning talk of the day. Clibeel Marcano from Aporte Hispano. Before Clibeel takes the stage, before you start playing it there, Joe, I do just want to also shout out our interpreter, Martha Rodriguez. If you've listened to the Spanish stream at all today, you know that she has been going nonstop the whole time. Martha, thank you so much. Thank you. You've been amazing. All right, Clibeel, take it away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Clibeel Marcano, editor of Reporte Hispano. I'm going to present what is Reporte Hispano, what we do here in New Jersey. For that, I'm going to read something that I wrote for this occasion. Reporte Hispano is one of the largest Hispanic language newspaper and digital news outlets for New Jersey. We distribute the newspaper is distributed in north and central counties of the state, especially in the cities and towns with high percent of the Hispanic population, according to the U.S. Census. In addition to the print edition, Reporte Hispano has a local news website, and the address is www.reportehispano.com. We also have an email blast newsletter that we send every week with the most important information of the week to a list of subscribers. Since the creation of the newspaper in June 2006, the newspaper has focused on covering major events occurring within the New Jersey broad and diverse Hispanic community. For 15 years, we have tried to fill the existing information gap within the community, since the mainstream media traditionally do not cover what happens in this community, and when they do, they generally report from a point of view that doesn't represent the interests of the community. From the page of the newspaper, we have kept the community informed and educated on issues of great importance to it, such as the struggle for more than 10 years to obtain driver's license, complain about where this and what they can do to prevent this abuse, labor exploitation, effort to obtain professional license and free education in the community college, and of course, information about the constant fight at the state and national level to stop ICE abuse, as well as the pressure to pass an immigration reform that creates a path to a citizenship for undocumented immigrants living in the country. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the newspaper focused on keeping the community informed about the implications of the disease, prevention measures, the progress of the disease in the state and the country, and the effectiveness of the vaccines. Report Hispano published actual information based on the facts during this time. With our information, we try to counteract the constant bombardment of false information about the pandemic that the community received through social media, that generate mistrust toward the authorities and the media and the medical community. In our coverage of COVID, the support we have from the Center for Cooperative Media was very helpful, with whom we cooperate through a translation of New Jersey Spotlight stories that then were published in Spanish in our print and digital editions. In 2020, we also focused on educating the community about the importance of the president election and the implications they have for the entire population in general. In this sense, we had the opportunity to work cooperatively with Star Ledger on various journalist stories about the election and their implications for the Hispanic community. These stories were published on the front page, both in the Star Ledger and in Report Hispano. This journalist cooperation was achieved through one of the Center for Cooperative Media programs that allows ethnic media to work in conjunction with the state mainstream media. This cooperation program between the media as well as the exchange and translation of the stories allowed us in 2020 to offer to the Hispanic community more detailed and complete information about the pandemic as well as the presidential elections. Programs like this, we consider that they should continue and expand to other publications, provided if we do this program in a flexible manner, recognize both the financial and staff constraints that many ethnic media outlets face. This type of program helps improve the information quality of the media, which benefits all residents of the state. Here at Report Hispano, we continue to work on this program to the best of our ability, and we look forward to continue to inform and educate the community for many years to come. A free, robust, independent press owned by women, Black people, Latino is part of what should define the state and the country. Thank you so much for listening to me. Bye.
Thank you, Clybelle, and thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone who presented with us today. That's it. That's the end of the 2021 New Jersey Local News Summit.
Thank you, Stephanie.
High fives.
It's been a pleasure co-hosting with you.
We hope you all have a great holiday next week, and we will be sharing the recordings, the slides, and
Yes.
everything probably after the weekend. Probably look for that Monday. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.